Greetings, fellow BNI members. I'm going to show you some things on the app, both the mobile app as well as the desktop view of BNI Connect. I know probably the mobile app is more interest than the desktop app, but I will show you some of the basics in both screens. And we're going to start with the login. The username is going to be the same email that is showing up in the BNI roster. If you have never logged into this before, you may have to go through the forgotten username or password. You may have to look for an email from BNI to initially get you started. If you have trouble with that, let me know. But there is a way to recover the password if you don't have it. I have mine, so we're just going to go ahead and log in there. And I'm going to do the same thing over here on the app side. So when you're using the mobile app, some things you'll notice, first of all, it'll show you the next meeting. See the little eye icon. You can generally get more information when you look at those. There's also a way to get to print a summary of the meeting info. You can see this week's slips. These are the ones that you have. And again, anytime you see the eyeball, you can see a few things, a few more details if you're in the meeting and frantically trying to write down what you did so that you can present it in the I have. That's one way to do it. I need to log a one-to-one, so I'm going to show you, this is probably the main area that you're frequently going to be interacting with in the app to log your activity. It's under slips. Why do we call it slips? Well, that's a throwback to the days in which BNI actually used paper three-part forms. Why are we still calling that in 2026? I have no idea. But when you click on slips, you get to this activity feed. The next thing you do is click on this, and it spawns 4 more bubbles, and you can log thank you for closed business, referrals, CEU credits, and one-to-ones. I'm going to do a CEU credit and a one-to-one, but the principle is the same for all of these. Actually, I'll open up each screen. If you open up thank you for closed business, then you will be pulling up either a local chapter member or if it's somebody from outside your chapter, and I'll use Brad Garland as an example, friend of mine in another BNI chapter. Then I can find him, and if I had thank you for closed business for him, I could check that, hit continue, put in amount, put in some comments, kind of refer to BNI training for most of these details, but most of them are fairly self-explanatory. But I want to keep moving, so I'm going to just kind of focus on how the app works rather than all the little rules. So again, click on the plus sign. I showed you thank you for closed business. Now if I have a referral, same process as before, pick a member. Most referrals are outside. I generally click inside if it's a self-referral. The rest of this is fairly self-explanatory. I'll mention on the phone numbers that it doesn't like any kind of punctuation. So just enter them just like that, and you can grade the referral from 0 or all the way to the left is pretty cold. Actually, all the way to the right is pretty hot. So again, that's how that works. I don't actually have anything for her right now, so I'm going to come back and discard changes. I do have a CEU credit, so we'll actually go through this one. I listen to the BNI podcast, and when I listen to enough of those episodes that I feel like I've gotten an hour's worth, I come down and scroll up to 1, tells me what I'm claiming. I hit confirm, and I now have that logged. I do have a one-to-one because I had lunch with Brian Robinson today, so I will find Brian here. Select who was initiated by. Where did we meet? These aren't super critical to be completely accurate, but I might as well put in the record. My favorite restaurant in the whole world, as anybody's ever gone to lunch with me knows. And you can just put a blurb. Again, this is mainly for your records. Don't really have to write a book here, just get some information. And again, that's mainly going to be for your records. So you'll now see that these are showing up in this feed. And when you want to refer back to one, it looks like Brad must, interestingly, I think this is a duplicate. Brad logged one we had at Pizzel's, and again, it's the same one actually. So that's the way that works. When it comes to things like referrals that you might have given or received, notice that you can see, one column or the other. So these are my received referrals. For the most part is what's going to show up in here. They're yellow when they're just in some phase or another. I'll explain what that means in a second. But if it's a thank you for closed business, then it shows green, have that little handshake icon. If you want to look into one of these, yes, you can update status here. So referrals start with not contacted yet. So move it to contacted. And we have other statuses here. If you click at green, that corresponds with the colors that you saw earlier. And again, there's other responses you can put here. I usually move them to contacted, and if I did get the business, then of course I'll do that. That's usually about all I do with these. But again, this does show you an activity feed for things that are given and things that are received. So you get a chance to look back and notice that in this week's slips, my CEU has increased to 1 and my 1-to-1s have increased from 2 to 1. You can also look at other stats and select 6 months, 12 months, lifetime. Another thing that is frequently going to be of interest is things like training opportunities and so forth. And this is where this button comes into play. If you click on community, you can see the main thing you're going to do here is events. So if you need member success training, for example, you can look through this feed, and this is your next member success program available to you as of this recording. So if you click register now, you can see the details. You can click to register. This will spawn, if you're on your phone, it'll spawn your mobile browser. You can also just go down here, click the big red register now button. And this arrow up here at the top is generally what's going to get you back from wherever you were to wherever you get back to home. There's some other things here that are just more reference and things you might want to look into in BNI, like BNI has various groups that you can look into if you want to network with BNI members from other places. This is something perhaps we all need to work on, getting and receiving testimonials, but I don't have any, and I don't think it's something we think about a whole lot. This is also a place you can add connections. By default, you get your local chapter members, and you can also search the BNI directory. I'll pick on Brad again from another chapter, and you can see multiple people in the BNI network. You can see their gains profile, learn things about Brad, like he was the top scorer for NBA Jam Week 1. And I can hit a connect request and hit submit. Another thing you can do in the app is register visitors. You can send an invitation to any chapter. I have personally not played with these functions a great deal, but the major thing you're probably going to want to do here is register your visitors would be a great idea. Or if you want to visit another chapter, you can register yourself. So suppose I wanted to visit Synergy. Pull them up, hit next, look for a visit date that I can make. It's actually showing today, which it's too late for, but I can plan to visit next week. I'm not going to go through with this because I don't know that I can actually attend, but you can see how that process is going to work. Registering a visitor, it's going to default to our chapter, although you could find another chapter in the region. If you did have a discussion with somebody and you wanted to register somebody for another chapter, but that process is going to be similar, except in this case, you're putting your friend's info in, and it's going to have multiple stages, and I know it's going to ask you for an email address and a phone number for the person you're registering. So again, I won't step through all of that. I think you get the idea from there. Finally, you got just a general search function, which you've basically seen the same thing work. And you're just trying to remember, obviously with just the number of members we have in our chapter, you can just kind of scroll that. But if you're just trying to remember, maybe you're in a large chapter and you're trying to remember, there was somebody in our chapter, whose name was Allison. Okay, well, there you go. You can refine the search. That function, of course, becomes more significant. If you're doing a worldwide search, you can do it by category. This is probably going to just result in a whole bunch of results. But if you wanted to do some search by category, more likely thing you're going to be wanting to do is search for another member and want to get at least enough in there that maybe the list won't be incredibly long. My intention here is to search for Alan Thielbar, and maybe that search is still too broad. See if getting his complete name. Of course, so the thing, if you have a complete name, you may not need to search him, but at any rate, you've got that capability. You can bring everything up. If you've got a referral you want to give somebody, you got your phone with you, and you do have their name, you want to refer Alan for commercial security, that's a way to do it if you don't have their card. Something else I should have checked while I was in here, and here's something where I don't know the answer to this question, but can we share that? Yes, we can. So that abstract looking little icon actually allows you to pull up a QR code, which you could show to the person you want to share that with. So with that, that's the main functions of the mobile app. And I'm not going to go over everything in detail, but one of the things I like to use the desktop app when I am sitting at my keyboard, just this way I'm not fat fingering things on my phone. The interface looks different, but once you start on a process, you'll find the logic is pretty similar. You got a little more real estate, so you got the drop down for local members, if I had a one-to-one with Chase, put in the location, and obviously all the same logic. So that's how that works. Again, all the same logic. The major things to look for are the big red boxes. And again, hit submit as your starting point, and I think you'll find that all pretty straightforward to operate. Something I also find extremely convenient about the desktop app is if you want to print your weekly slips, I find this real straightforward on the desktop app. As you saw, there is a way to do it on the phone, but this gives you a real nice presentation, and it pretty much is the print preview, but I want to see a little bit more about how that view of things is going to look. That is pretty much it. That was the slip view, which again, BNI still loves this idea of the paper slips, but if you just want more of a spreadsheet style presentation of what you did and who you did it for or with, that also works. You can even export it to a spreadsheet or the like if you like doing that sort of thing. If you do that, then that printout's going to look kind of like that. And this, when I can remember to do it, I like to do this prior to the meeting, because that gives me a free sheet of scratch paper to write my weekly ask and everything else. So that's the view of both of these apps. And again, if you can find it in the mobile app, it's also in the desktop app. Things are differently arranged. Again, I like the real estate that you get with the desktop app. So if you've never used it, give it a try. I'll also put in a plug for doing member success training. If you haven't already done it, look for those online or in-person options. So that's it. If you got any questions, let me know.